All right, come on over here real quick. I want to show you something. Basically, the Social Security Commissioner is now Frank Bisignano, and he's making a bunch of statements that are, well, they're interesting leadership statements. I want to go through them real quick so you kind of understand exactly where the Social Security Administration is headed, things you should be happy about, things you should be worried about, and all the stuff in between. Let's get right to it real quick. All right, so this is an article. It's by Jory Heckman. It was produced on May 21st, so basically today. It's 1:42 on May 22nd a.m., but today. SSA Commissioner Frank Bisignano told managers he's open to advocating for money for IT modernization or more employees to oversee tech modernization. So what he's saying is the new commissioner is basically looking to modify and upgrade the tech and then go ask, Daddy Trump, President Trump, for a little bit of money to go ahead and rumble the Republicans and get them going to get that money rolling for additional tech personnel. President Donald Trump's pick to run the Social Security Administration says that he doesn't anticipate widespread layoffs for the agency's workforce, but he does expect employees to become more productive as SSA pursues artificial intelligence tools to streamline work. So just to put it another way, he's saying he expects the people working there who are afraid to lose their jobs, that they will become more productive because of new technology tools. SSA Commissioner Frank Bisignano told managers in a largely unscripted 90-minute address Wednesday that he has no plans for reduction in force. We call it an RIF, but said AI will be a great enabler that helps employees handle a growing workload with its lowest headcount in 50 years. Quote, I have no intent to RIF people, which means fire them. That's what that means, laying them off, firing them, stuff like that. Bisignano told managers, quote, if I wake up and find out we can do all our work with 20,000 people, which I can't see that right now, will be 20,000. So he's saying if he has to go ahead and essentially fire, tens of thousands of employees, and he believes that that's the right thing to do, then he'll do that. He will fire 30,000 people at the SSA. But he doesn't think it's going to come to that. He also stated, if I wake up and say we need 80,000, will be 80,000 people, I've got to determine what's the right staffing level. Okay. So essentially, big changes, lots of different amounts of employees. We don't know what's going to happen, but the direction is rocking and rolling. SSA planned to cut its workforce by 7,000 positions by offering early retirement and separation incentive payments worth up to 25,000. The agency has also reassigned many employees from regional offices to field office jobs to work face-to-face with beneficiaries. Quote, we've got a lot of turmoil. I think we reassigned a lot of people, Bisignano said. I guarantee you we're going to get the job done, and my dream is to not have to let people go. End quote. Bisignano said, quote, if we can't get the job done, that's a different problem. You guys don't want people who don't give an honest day's work for an honest day's pay, do you? So in other words, Frank Bisignano is saying to the SSA workers, which, to be fair, let's go back, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, at the SSA, we all on the private side, working with claimants, etc., used to say, hey, you can't get fired when you work for the SSA. And that's just kind of how it was. You could screw things up, but you wouldn't get fired. Now he's saying he's going to hold them to the private industry standard of honest days pay, honest days work, which, from his field is you push, you push, you push. You wake up early, you finish late, you push. And he's saying basically to these employees, you want to stay here, it's up to you, but you're going to have to push. And that is not something a lot of these SSA employees want to hear. Bisignano said his goal is to make the SSA a digital-first organization and to overhaul its website so that more beneficiaries, primarily retirees and Americans with disabilities, can get their questions answered online instead of over the phone or in person at field offices. Now, remember, in the past presidency, through basically the commissioner that was put in place by, Biden, what we had was essentially a shutting down of the offices being open to the public. And we went to you're going to have to set an appointment first system, which was a very negative thing for a lot of people because, let's call it like it is, these Social Security field offices, we pay our entire life into a system that we can't even, realistically, we can't even get access to. I mean, that's shit. You know what I mean? But again, it is what it is, okay? Quote, "We're never going to be client first if we're not digital first in this era," he said. "That's the only way we're going to win. You're competing with experiences that people have with Amazon. If I can get something done on Amazon, why can't I get something done the same way with Social Security? That's how people think." End quote. And he's not wrong. He is right. When we look at the Social Security Administration, we automatically, because it's part of the federal government, have a very low standard of expectation because, to be fair, we don't think the government's going to be able to meet private sector demands. And they don't. They don't. They don't. They don't have like the super talent, the super technology, the funding for the super tech. They don't. They don't meet those standards. But we still compare them to the private sector as a comparative model. But nobody expects the SSA to be like Amazon. Nobody's expecting hyper automated robots. Nobody's expecting that, but it may come to that. When it comes to rolling out new tools, Bisignano said his first tech priority is to deploy AI on the agency's phone lines. Okay, so he's going to go ahead and try and have artificial intelligence answering a lot of your questions for Social Security benefits as much as possible, because the 800 number, it's better, but it's still shit. And they had to get away from Verizon and switch to a new system. They went legacy and then they switched to a new system, but it still has a lot of problems. It takes way too much time to get somebody on the phone. So Frank Bisignano's number one priority, just so you're all aware, is to get AI on the agency's phone lines. His number two priority is to make the Social Security numbers safe again, which there's no way to do it. I mean, 270 million of them went onto the dark web December 2023. So we need a new system. Our phones have to represent our new identity as our personal device to us. Quote, "The phone has to have artificial intelligence to do the work. We can all do this in a year, and then your jobs will be more enriching," he said. "The reason we get so many phone calls is because half the people have to call twice." And he's not wrong. A lot of people have to call twice. They can't get the answer they want. They get different answers from different people. He's not wrong. Bisignano said SSA could eventually get to the point where it uses AI tools for more complex tasks, like driving down processing times for disability benefits. I mean, they're already doing that. They already scan the entire file and poop out a report that says, "Hey, here's the good, the bad, the ugly of this disability claim." Quote, "Do you think those people are happy waiting 230 days, 270 days?" He said. "There's a ton of things that AI can apply to make it move along faster." And that's the main thing. A lot of people applying for disability benefits, they lose their homes. They have to, borrow from family members that end up hating them. It's a really sad situation that this country is at that point, because we literally pay our entire life for these disability benefits to be there. And it's taking, 12 to 18 months to get a decision at the initial filing level for a disability claim. So to be fair, disability is in shambles. It is the actual Social Security Administration processing time of it's in shambles. Bisignano said increased automation won't replace employees, although he might eat those words. Quote, "I've always believed in, if you automate over here, well, you're going to find jobs for people over somewhere else," he said. "The best thing that could happen is we answer the phone in 1 minute, a lot of it through technology. We turn around claims, whether they are disability or retirement, at a much different speed." Now, that is hopeful, kind, benevolent speech talk from a leader that's trying to not make people fear and quit the SSA. But the reality is, to be very fair, that at the end of the day, when you hyper automate something, yeah, it frees up that person to go somewhere else. But in the modern world, with how AI is taking over so many things, a lot of people, they just get fired. They just get laid off. And it's not a good deal. Not a good deal. Bisignano said he's open to asking the Trump administration for money for IT modernization or more employees to lead his tech modernization plans if the agency doesn't already have the resources to do it. We know that Trump intends to increase the budget by 20%. That's kind of the direction they're going. We knew that Bisignano was going to come in to integrate a lot of the private sector banking technologies into the SSA. We also know that Frank Bisignano took the job, because of his family members in the Social Security Administration, his love for the people, and of course, his $500 million of not having to pay tax by having to be able to sell the stock and not have to pay taxes on it, because essentially he gets to sell it under provision that allows him to sell it because it might create a bias or be a problem. So he's able to diversify it into other stocks, bonds, mutual funds, etc., and not have to pay taxes on it. So realistically, $500 million in stocks that he gets to sell without paying immediate taxes. That's why we got a super CEO. That's why we got him. Okay. Quote, we're not going to get everything done in the week, but if we need to spend more money on tech, I'll do it. I'm not sure I need to. We spend a boatload of money on tech, but we can make our technologists better too, he said. Bisignano said employees from the Department of Government Efficiency will lead these upgrades. So real quick, what he's saying is Doge is already working on these upgrades, these technologies. Doge is, already integrated into the SSA. Whether the Supreme Court rules in favor of Doge having access to the information or doesn't, he's basically going to allow Doge to set up the future systems of the SSA. And then the SSA will just integrate the data directly into those systems. So that's where this whole thing is going. Quote, your bias has to be, because mine is, Doge is helping make things better. It may not feel that way, quote, but don't believe everything you read. He said, I will ensure we have very smart, talented people that can get technical chores done. I'm counting on them helping me rebuild the website. Okay, so essentially Doge is going to be like the future taskmaster innovator of the Social Security Administration. Some of you hate that. Some of you love that. You figure it out. That's your thing. You know what I mean? Whether you love him or hate him, you figure that out. Bisignano said he's also focused on improving low employee satisfaction scores. SSA received the lowest employee satisfaction scores among large agencies last year, according to data compiled by the Partnership of Public Services Best Places to Work in the federal government scorecard. Not surprising, they had massive firings. There are agency lows not seen in 50 years. They have a lot of manager issues that don't support their employees. That's another gig. Quote, my job is to fix that. I'm not going to improve your job satisfaction by giving more cookies. All right. No balloons. It's how do we make the jobs more meaningful? How do we service people well? How do we invest in technology? Let me read that to you again. The SSA employees will not be getting more cookies. No more extra balloons. It's how do we make the jobs more meaningful? How do we service people well? How do we invest in technology? If you want to make the jobs better for the Social Security recipient or Social Security employees, you should just pay them more. That's basically what it comes down to. If you pay them more while you're in there, they're going to feel better about their job. During his confirmation hearing in March, Bisignano pushed back on claims from Senate Democrats that he would seek further cuts to SSA or consider privatizing the agency. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat in New York, you all know him, told reporters following the hearing that Bisignano is a proud Doge guy whose claim to fame was overseeing mass layoffs in the private sector, which is kind of true. You know what I mean? Hyper monetization, AI integration led to mass layoffs. It's kind of true. It's not incorrect, Quote, he will accelerate the closures, rollbacks, and risky practices that Doge has already set in motion, Schumer said. Bisignano was CEO of a financial tech company before joining the Trump administration and previously served as the chief operating officer of JP Morgan Chase. This is true. Bisignano told managers that America's safety net, quote, is not going away and that he would serve as a stern, steady hand to guide the agency. Okay. How much does it cost to get a super CEO from the banking industry? It costs what they're going to pay him in hundreds of thousands, which is BS to him, and not having to pay immediate taxes on that $500 million in stock. That's what it costs. That's how you got him. Quote, that's what I represent. I don't represent. How am I going to ruin your life? What fun is that? You think that's how I want to go down at no, let me read it right. You think that's how I want to go down at 65 years old after a long term, being a successful career leader, being on top of things? I want this to be historic, and it can be. We're not going to do anything that doesn't make the place better, he said. So in other words, he's saying, we're going to make it better. Trust me. I've done this for a long time, 65 years old, and he's a success, and he doesn't want to end in a negative spot. Although to be fair, the SSA is in trouble, so he's going to have to do a lot. SSA launched security stat meetings under the Biden administration. where agency leaders would meet, review weekly performed. Review weekly performance metrics and identify ways to improve better customer service. Bisignano said those metrics show SSA isn't where it needs to be when it comes to serving its customers. I liked Commissioner Martin O'Malley a lot. He put security.in. They're going to be using it as part of the Republican Trump era through Frank Bisignano. I'm a big fan of Commissioner Martin O'Malley. But what we're getting here is a very different type of leader from Martin O'Malley. Okay. Quote, we've got a lot of screens on the wall. You guys pass screens and they've got performance indicators. They demoralize me, those screens. I hate that red. We've got to do something about that red. You're numb to it, I think, he said. Bisignano told managers he's also aware of his critics, recalling protesters who showed up at his confirmation hearing. Quote, I like that protest. I want to prove them so wrong, man. This is going to be the most fun I've ever had, he said. I don't know, man. Frank Bisignano, Commissioner, I don't know. I don't know if you're going to have a fun time leading the Social Security Administration. I'm all for your success. You need anything from me, let me know. Anything from me, let me know. I'm all for you figuring out how to hyper automate the SSA to make it work better and make people happier and get them their benefits sooner. I'm all for that. I'm all for it. To be fair, I'm not sure you're fully aware of how the Social Security Administration eats people as their leaders. It just eats them. Okay. So, Bisignano also bristled at comments made by former SSA Commissioner Martin O'Malley. I liked him, but Martin O'Malley is being used by billionaire Democrats right now to promote the idea that the system's going to collapse, which ultimately, to some degree, it will. Not collapse, but miss payments. Interrupted payments. Commissioner Martin O'Malley, who warned Doge's efforts to gain access to the sensitive personal information of millions of Americans have led to system outages, which it did, that puts the agency at risk of not sending monthly benefit payments on time, which it had issues with. It didn't, across the board, but there were definitely people who didn't get their check. Quote, ultimately, you're going to see the system collapse. This is from O'Malley. Ultimately, you're going to see the system collapse and an interruption of benefits. O'Malley said, I believe you will see that within the next 30 to 90 days. O'Malley told CNBC in March. And he was the prior commissioner before, Frank Bisignano, before, Leland Dudek, before Miss King. And then there was somebody else in there. I think it was acting commissioner Carolyn Colvin, I think. And then we go back to Martin O'Malley. Okay. Quote, a previous commissioner likes to talk about why we're going to break this thing, why this thing can't work. It's like the least amount of people we've ever had. It must break, end quote. Bisignano said, quote, you can't just throw stuff out with me and make something up. Bisignano is also keenly aware of news coverage the agency is getting. Throughout the meeting, he repeatedly joked that his address to SSA managers would be leaked to the news media, which it was. Quote, we're going to be good. I really don't like losing. I like winning. We want to win. Who wants to win here? Winning at this comes in different ways. It comes when you go home, get in your car and feel good about yourself, your team, and the agency as a whole. I think one of my main jobs is not having a newspaper article saying we're wrong, he said. By the way, my other job is not having you leak the news that we're a problem, which they did to Frank, which they did to Leland Dudek. Man, they leaked the shit out of his stuff. When he was commissioner, that ship was leaking left, that ship was leaking right. And what happened was the Social Security Administration was mostly made up of Democrats, So when Republicans took it over, leaks everywhere. There were also literally attempts inside it that were treasonous by certain groups that did not like the Republican interference with the Social Security Administration. He added, quote, we have to think we're going to be on the cover of some magazine for good. We've had enough coverage on the other stuff. We need to get rid of that. You'll be proud if we're on the cover of, Federal Workers Weekly, right? I don't know. There must be a magazine we want to be on the cover of for greatness, and you'll be a part of it. The only thing is that magazine cover, we don't really have magazines with covers anymore. We have websites as magazines that do a front page. That's what we have. But that's what he means. He's just old. He's older. He's 65. So he comes from the newspaper looked like this kind of thing. Newspapers are mostly digital now. That's just how it is. All right. So here's the deal. That is the update as to where the commissioner basically stands on the future of changes. The main top three, I'll just tell you what they are. He wants AI into the phone systems of the Social Security Administration. He wants Social Security cards, basically, your Social Security numbers protected again. And then he wants to do, I mean, you could do a couple of things for number three. He wants to update the internal systems so that most of your questions could be answered through the website. And then, of course, a big thing that he wants to do is he wants to hyper automate the system. And essentially re-review whether they need more tech money to go ahead and push tech. That is the future. Now, I have one additional comment that I want to go into with Trump and this entire situation. Trump used Commissioner Leland Dudick as his bad guy. The guy who basically has to fire everybody, the guy that basically has to go ahead and make a lot of people miserable, the bad guy. And as a result of that situation, Commissioner Leland Dudek had to fire a lot of people, lay off a bunch of people, close a bunch of offices, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The new white knight is Frank Bisignano. He's going to get additional funding. He's going to get all this technology from the private sector to be integrated into the SSA. That means over the next 2 to 3 months, you'll be seeing a ton of news about the future of Social Security benefits and the agency. But remember, Republicans tend to be, raise the retirement age. The Republicans tend to be get the overpayment, people paying their overpayments back. Republicans tend to be, not essentially the most cuddly to the Social Security system. However, we're $36 trillion in debt. We do not have a Social Security program that works in the future. I'm going to tell you one thing that's very wrong with all of the math that they're doing at the Social Security Administration. I'm going to get on, the chief actuary, Stephen Goss. The one thing that they're doing improperly when they calculate where this whole thing is going is the fertility rate. People are not having kids at alarming rates. We can't afford them. And because we're not having kids at alarming rates, we're not making human beings that can pay taxes to pay for retirement benefits and disability benefits. The system is going to collapse at some point in the future, but the collapse is not going to be a complete destruction, zero payment. It's just going to be they're able to pay you less and less and less with these Social Security benefits, which is why you need to learn what your options are beyond Social Security benefits, because the ability to pay for things, I mean, maybe state supplementals will boost it. Some of these blue states, they have those, California, New York, stuff like that. But to be fair, at the very end of the day, you just have to understand we have a major fertility problem and people just ain't having kids. You don't have kids, you cannot pay for retirement benefits, and it will shrink and dissolve. Now, they can make the Social Security Administration hyper automated, but it's not going to fix the fertility rate. If you want to fix the Social Security Administration's programs, like keep them around for the next 50 years, 75 years, whatever, you have to increase the likelihood that young people will have kids. There's a lot of things you could do. You could have lots of immigrants come in that are little, they're young couples that are making babies. You could basically get rid of student loans, which would increase the financial stability of young people and they'd start having more kids. You could decrease the likelihood of people being able to get extra money as they have more kids without, mothers or fathers that are willing to take care of them. But that's just kind of hurting people, who have kids. You know what I mean? And the main thing, too, is that we need to inspire children to achieve more. I know that's not popular, but if we don't get them to achieve more, they will not be able to pay enough taxes. Somebody working at Walmart does not pay enough taxes to support the retired. Somebody working at Staples, somebody working at, Home Depot, they do not make enough money to pay taxes to support the disabled. They just don't. So we need to have a future where essentially people are actually adding to the bottom line. Will that happen with artificial intelligence taking over all kinds of jobs? No. Is it something we need to be aware of? Yes. Is this looking like Social Security benefits are doomed? They are, but all things are doomed. It's just a timeline as to when it's going to happen. All right. And I don't mean that as a negative thing. I just mean it as a thing where we got to get people to start having kids, and a lot of kids, where the mom and the dad or the mom and the dad, whatever, whatever you think is acceptable. I'm not getting into that. But the point is, where the couple, maybe if they're married, the husband and wife, whatever, where the couple has kids, they stay together and they raise those kids. Fertility rates are horrific. It is a major problem. And over the next 10 to 15 years, you're going to be seeing why it's such a scary, scary thing. I will catch you all a little bit later. Please remember to like and subscribe. Also, please head over to Google, type in Disability Resolution Law Firm or Disability Resolution Florida. Throw some stars up there. I always love waking up and seeing those. I go live on Mondays and Thursdays, and there's a private mini contract for a mini consultation for an hour below. I'll catch you a little bit later. You have a wonderful day. Sleep well, and we'll rock and roll from there. Attorney Walter Hnot, thank you so much, and we'll catch up. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.